So I'll give you an example. It's always good to work with examples. I had a client, he had a construction company, a home construction company, very successful. And the daughter, one of his daughters, has been in the business for 25 years, working side by side with him, growing the business. He's not given her a piece of the business yet. He compensates her well because she does contribute significantly to the profitability of the business. But this is a business that's going to succeed well beyond her and well beyond him because they've built an infrastructure so that the business can succeed. So he wants to reward her for that. So either during his life or at his death, he's going to transfer control of this business to her. We originally talked about selling it to her, and he didn't feel that that was fair because she had already invested her time and energy and taken a reduced amount of compensation for many, many years. So he decided, with my help, that he was going to gift it to her over time or give it to her at his death. What about his other two kids? What did we do? Well, we used life insurance. We used his other liquid assets to come up with an estimate, at least as of today, of what he wanted to give them. Was it equal to the value of the business? We could get that meticulous, but as any mathematician in the room or physicist in the room, I think there's one, who understands the realities of life, that valuations change over time. They go up and they go down. And you all are in the markets, and you know that valuations change over time. Valuations of businesses change over time. So you can't account for all those changes. You merely try to estimate what the value of the business is today, because you have to if you're going to be gifting it or selling it for estate gift tax purposes. And then you come up with an idea of what you think is fair for the other kids to get out of your remaining assets. And if you don't have enough remaining assets, we can use life insurance to equalize and provide for those benefits upon the founder's death. Questions? I want to stop and let you ask some hypotheticals, questions that you may be running into with your business owners. Anybody?
I have a question then.
Yeah.
Okay, so you have the business owner and their intention is to leave it to the kids or one of the kids or something like that. How do you know that the child, even if they say, yes, I'm ready to take over that business, what if, it's like kind of a guilt thing, like, oh, they provided so well for me, or whatnot. How do you know they're really telling the truth and really are willing to do that?
Here's the question. How do you know that the founder is really willing to give ownership to the child, if you're the child?
But then the child actually do all that work that it entails to run it.
And so the child gets involved in the business and runs it on a mere promise. Well, that's a decision you as the child would have to make, wouldn't you? Would you do that for another person, outside of your family, without a contract, without an agreement, without a plan? If I'm in the child's shoes, I would not. I would insist that my parents engage in some real planning and document the plan and put it into writing so that it's contractually binding. That's hard. It's like talking about a prenup with a future spouse. It's a hard thing to discuss because your parent's going to say, "You ungrateful, I'm giving you the opportunity of a lifetime." That raises a question in my mind as to whether or not I should even let you into the business. I went through that. My parents were in the jewelry business, and they had a really successful couple of stores that I had a business plan for. I was going to grow it like Mervis, I was going to grow this thing. I swear, it was before Mervis, too. And I was thinking, this is how I was going to do it. I went to the Commerce School at the University of Virginia. I had my training. I actually wrote a business plan as one of my projects for the business planning course that I took there in 1979. And I was ready. I was ready to do this. I had it all planned out. But my father wasn't ready to give up control to a 21-year-old or a 22-year-old. And my mother definitely wasn't ready for that because she was in the business too. And I kind of read the tea leaves and I said, these folks are going to run the business the way they want to run it. And most entrepreneurs do. They're going to run the business the way they want to run it until the very, very end. So it's either you integrate the child into the business and you have a process, because business succession planning is truly a process, a long-term process of grooming, mentoring, training, planning, developing skill sets, and if you don't have them, bringing in other people to run the business. We'll get into that in a second. And if you can't develop the next generation, or the next generation is not willing or not given the opportunity, then it's not going to sync up. So it's a tough discussion to have with a parent, but it has to be had. And you don't have to insist on contracts today, but you do want to see the plan, and you want to see the exit path for the founders so that the children or the next generation of management, whoever they are, can come in and take over the business. Which is really what I do now. It's building that pipeline and that pathway so that the business owner can exit and the next generation of family or management can step in. So, minimizing family conflicts. Again, comprehensive planning. It's all about figuring out what the needs of the business are. Before you can figure out what the needs of the business are, you got to figure out what the business's strategic plan is. It's a business planning exercise, and that's where I bring in the skill set on the business planning side. Is my CPA background, my tax background. I bring that in and try to infuse some thought process into that. But we want to bring in an expert who can really manipulate financial projections, somebody who can help the owner think into the future. A lot of these owners just think day to day. They don't want to think beyond day to day. But our job as the planner is to help them think beyond the day to day and establish the values that they want to pass on, the legacy that they want to pass on, the financial picture that they want to pass on, all of these things.
Wayne, real quick, what's the percentage of people you work with that are actually on the ball as far as the true valuation?
True valuation. What
you
is
said you
that?
have to bring in experts because these guys probably think it's it's like selling an heirloom that they think is worth something that somebody else.
That's a great question, Chris. What is the true value of the business? Ed, what's the true value of the business?
What a willing buyer will pay.
What a willing buyer will pay a willing seller. That is fair market value, by the way. But you're right. One of the most difficult things that I face with founders is they have an overinflated expectation of what the business will attract. And it always ends up slowing down the business succession process or stopping it. They may not be willing to sell because they think it's worth more, and the kids don't want to pay that, the next succession of management don't want to pay it, the private equity firm doesn't want to pay it, the outside strategic buyer doesn't want to pay for it. All of these things influence the valuation process, and it is a process. My job, again, is to try to change the expectations or adjust them so that it's more realistic. Bringing in valuation experts doesn't always work. I've done valuation work. I review on average 12 valuations a year, mostly for estate planning and gift tax planning, but we have to do it for stock option plans, we have to do it for investment banking proposals, fairness opinions when we're selling companies. There's lots of different reasons to value a business. For estate planning, it's just one of them. And so the idea is you see a lot of the methodologies that clients use, but it always goes back to assumptions that are built into the valuation. And it's the assumptions drive the projections this way or this way. And it's probably somewhere in the middle. And so the idea is to adjust expectations. And what I've been successful at is trying to get the client, instead of focusing on the value of the business, is to focus on what they want to take home if the business were sold. after taxes. So how much money do you need to live on and do you want to have to live on for the rest of your life based on the business and what it's provided to you on an annual basis and what it could provide to you on an annual basis. But if you're 75, you're not going to keep working until you're 90 because you can't. Physically, there's going to come a time when you're not going to be able to work anymore. And so the idea is, what is the glide path to exit? I was on the phone with a client. I've been working on the business succession plan for 2 years. We haven't done anything on it yet. Because I've got there's two founders, a younger founder who is very protective of the older founder and does not want the older founder to get too little for his business interest. And they're in a specialty area of real estate. I can't describe it anymore because it might reveal who they are, but they're very successful. And both of them agree on the fact that we want to protect the older founder and we don't want to give away too much to the 3 folks who are coming up through the pipeline who might inherit the business. The problem is the 3 guys in the pipeline aren't necessarily the right guys to run the business. And that usually is the biggest issue, which I'll get to in a second. When we're looking at that handout, I'll focus you on some of the issues that people just don't focus on when they're doing their business succession planning. These are the most important issues in terms of planning for the future. But as I mentioned, planning for the beneficiaries, whether they are in the business or not in the business, the family meeting is really an important part of this process. Will you facilitate the family meeting? Maybe, maybe not. Will I do it? Maybe, maybe not. Will we get one of these family counseling experts to do it? Probably. I would highly, depending on the size of the estate. So if we're talking about an estate of 20 million and up, I highly recommend that we involve somebody who's an expert in family counseling who can minimize the conflicts during the meeting. Because when you get somebody who starts screaming in the meeting, what do? Oh, you want to bet? Nobody does that, she said. Another thing that you have to consider is you don't want the kid who's in the business to exercise undue influence over the parent because they're always there. They're always at their ear. They're always feeding them information. Yeah, Johnny is not doing anything. He doesn't deserve anything because I'm here 24/7. Johnny's out there, climbing rocks. Well, Dad and Mom may love Johnny just the same. And so they want to do something nice for Johnny. So does it mean equal? Does it mean fair? How do we deal with it? Undue influence can be exercised. I've seen it done. You have to be careful of that. You have to be aware of it. But as I said, business success is really the priority. How do we get to a successful exit or transition of the business? So when we're doing our planning for our kids and explaining whatever the plan is, they have to understand that the wealth that was created in this family may have been created because of the business. So even though I have 3 kids, I may not want the 3 kids involved in running the business, or at least exclusively involved in running the business. I may want some outside help. As an example, so I'm involved in this big $500 million a year company. We have a board of advisors of 12 people. Some of them are lawyers. I'm on the board. We have CPA. We have 2 industry experts on the board who really know the industry and really are valued members of the board of advisors. And the family is also on the board. All the family comes to all the meetings. But the board of advisors gives advice to the family. Family has a meeting before the board of advisors meeting every time we have a meeting. The family facilitator comes in, runs that meeting, deals with the issues at hand for the family, and often they transition into the board of advisors meeting. Our job as the board of advisors meeting is not to let the family dynamics overtake the business. Our job is to run the business, successfully. And make sure that the plan that's been laid out by a professional management team, in this case, a president, CFO, chief legal officer, CTO, we have all these people who are professional managers, none of whom are family managers, family members, run the business. But they have to have the fortitude to stand up to the family, and so does the board of advisors. And you need to build a mechanism to allow for that to happen. And it's done through contracts, trust agreements, and governance documents.